Hey everyone, hopefully you guys can hear me. We'll get started here in a second. All right, I guess we'll get started. Thank you guys. Thank you all for attending. I'm Joshua TechDev Walker. I'm a cloud solutions architect at Deloitte and one of the co-founders and current board members for Black Orlando Tech. It's great to represent both sides today and thank Bot for allowing me to lead this session on behalf of Deloitte's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Group. For those of you that don't know, Deloitte is a global consulting firm servicing some of the biggest clients in the world, and I look forward to presenting a topic that is near and dear to my heart as someone that has, had to reinvent myself through storytelling and is a published author now myself. I usually lead tech topics, but think these soft skills storytelling topics are way more modular than any code you'll ever write, and will take you both, very far in your career and life as well. Just in case this is your first event with Black Orlando Tech, this Black Orlando Tech is a nonprofit organization committed to accelerating minority economic advancement through workforce, small business, and socioeconomic development, rather. And we have a big goal to train and inspire 10,000 net new minorities to get in the field of tech by 2025. So big, audacious goal, but, making some really big moves to make sure that we hit that. And for those that don't know me, I've successfully transitioned in the past from, the military into general programming and then eventually into cloud. A huge part of my success was telling my authentic story as I kind of went through these benchmarks. But before we start, I just wanted to talk about some logistics, and you'll love this next part, as we'll be giving away three $50 gift cards, so $150 in total, broken into three, to whoever can answer our trivia correctly in the chat towards the end of the program. So please stick around so you have good odds at winning. Also, Deloitte is hiring a lot right now, so if you're interested in a role with Deloitte, please email info@blackorlandotech.org with your latest resume. Once again, info@blackorlandotech.org with your latest resume, and I'll get connected with you personally around getting your resume hopefully into the right hands at Deloitte. Last but not least, all of the worksheets that I'll be displaying today will be mailed to you guys within the next 24 hours of the session. And then basically during this session, you can fill in kind of your notes by hand, and then once we mail out the sheets, then you can fill it in yourself. With this usually being done in person setting, we won't have breakout rooms, which is why we're kind of doing this modification. So you might see some language where it's like more kind of geared toward like a breakout room webinar or an in-person webinar. So thank you for the flexibility there. And just so you don't miss out on anything from Black Orlando Tech, definitely please sign up to our mailer at our website, blackorlandotech.org. And we promise not to spam you. So we look forward to being connected with you, as we have a lot of great things going on here currently and in the near future. So we want to make sure you get all of the latest announcements. So kind of to kick it off, we all have a story. It's about what makes us who we are. It's what we've experienced. It's what we've learned. Although our stories are unique to each of us as individuals, sharing our stories can help us find common ground and make really meaningful connections with others. Not only that, but sharing our own stories and being open about who we are, we encourage others to do the same, which as a diversity, equity, inclusion lead, not only in BOT, but at Deloitte, it's very important for you to be your authentic self. And that kind of becomes viral most of the time, where people feel like they have the permission to be themselves as well. And you're just a lot more productive human being when you're able to be yourself at work and not wear a costume. We all probably have more than one story, obviously. Your life is a long time. However, maybe some of us haven't had the chance to really think about it, or don't have it ready in our back pocket as far as like telling our story. And where this comes in, as far as your career, is when you're really an interview is about telling your story. If you think about a resume, it's really a timeline of all of the important things you've done and why it matters to your prospective employer. And then if you're a business owner, which Bot does a lot with business owners as well, then when you have your pitch deck and you're trying to get investment and things of that nature, then your story is important there, as well as you have to tell them, how the story was, how the company was created, how did you find your founders, how are you going to take it to the next level, and really just the art of storytelling is something that helps people win and time again, for sure. Today we're going to take time to explore, kind of what makes us each unique, learn more about story structure, and then hopefully from what you get today, you can start to craft your own story a little bit better. So I'm going to actually bring up the worksheet and this will be sent out to you guys afterwards after the session. So let me bring that up. 1 second. And I'll zoom in. So the words and the phrases we shared in the last, 1 second. So we're going to start with this kind of this quick activity to get started. This exercise is really on introspection and sharing more about who you are, which can take, you kind of being vulnerable with yourself while you're kind of looking at the worksheet and thinking about kind of what these words mean to you. And I'll scroll down some more. This kind of really plays into your overall story of how do you describe yourself? Because I think the people that really inspire us are the ones that are able to describe themselves really well. So I'll give a few moments for you guys to kind of digest this. But as you can see, what I love about where we are kind of in society, where we're getting to a place of maturity where we're able to kind of more boldly self-identify. And these are kind of some markers, and this isn't an exhaustive list by any means, but this is a thing where you can start to kind of figure out what your persona is and who you kind of want to be, either in your social circles, at home, and then definitely in the marketplace, as far as being either an employee that sticks out or a business owner or startup owner that sticks out in the marketplace to accelerate your business. And I'll definitely send this out here, but definitely pontificate on how you would kind of use some of these markers to tell your own story, as I think it's a really important thing to be able to do. So I'm going to open up another worksheet here, and sorry, I'm just context switching. And let me zoom in here. So while looking at this, take a couple minutes to check the words and phrases you would use to describe yourself. Add any that are missing, obviously, but this, like when you're sharing your story, a big part of sharing your story is, kind of the words that you use to identify yourself. And then we'll move on here. So all in all, the words and phrases we shared in the last, in that last exercise and the thing you just viewed, and we're going to send this information out. So I'd love to get your feedback in the Black Orlando Tech Slack or any of our social channels. But the words and phrases we shared in the last exercise are only a part of who we are just in general. Our experience and our achievements and kind of our aha moments and obstacles we have faced, tell a deeper story of really who we are. And we can kind of explore those defining moments. Here we've provided 6 story types to help you think through your defining moments. These categories are simply really guides for inspiration, but you're welcome to get away from those if your defining moment doesn't fit into one of these, obviously. Also, keep in mind that your defining moment may be less of a moment and more of a journey, something that got you from, point A to point B. You should also have the storytelling self-paced guide. This isn't the only time we're going to use it, so definitely we'll have this, in the background for following sessions. So let's just take a few moments just to think of a time or moment, experience, or journey you kind of want to focus on. Like if you were telling your story as like a movie trailer or a sizzle reel, this would be great for for you to figure out kind of what is the best story based on context. So a good personal story for myself that I've told over and over, just from, and this is all, well documented, that, I did a big transition in tech from basically working in entertainment. And so, that story itself, a lot of times is able to give people, a good grasp of, the hard work I put in to cut over and that type of thing. And I think we all have those stories that kind of define our character that we can voice to others. And there's a place to add, and once we send this, there's a place to add it at the bottom of the first page of the self-paced guide under authentic story planning, where you'll be able to add some more notes as well. And I'd love to hear some of you guys define moments, outside of this session, or maybe even in the comments when we get into QA and stuff. You don't have to go into detail at this point, or, within the chat or anything, but it'd be great to just kind of hear your feedback, as this is usually like a very interactive in-person session. And now that we've had like a chance to explore who we are and our defining moments, let's talk about how to turn that into a story that will engage really the audience. And that audience could, like I said, be multiple things. It could be, the people that you're trying to impress as far as doing your interviews. It could be investors. It could be just you appealing to a new target audience, as far as like you just wanting to change your scope as like a public figure. Think of the autonomy of a story basically as like a flight. You have the takeoff. This includes the place and time. It introduces the main character, which is you, and it sets the stage overall. So showing somebody what the jump off point. So for my example, from when I started in tech, it was, unfortunately at the time we had lost it all. I wanted to figure out some other thing I could be passionate at outside of entertainment. And I said, hey, I always loved technology, so I should look into it, and, met the right people, and kind of the rest is history. But that takeoff point, kind of gets people grounded in kind of where it all started. Then there is turbulence, and obviously what I just said is actual turbulence, but really a defining moment of what made that decision happen, or where the story kind of has a big inflection point. But just because it's called turbulence doesn't mean it is necessarily negative. It could be a new opportunity, an achievement, or a life or just career change altogether. I've gone through, quote unquote turbulence, where I've changed roles, where I've gone from, I used to be kind of in general programming, and then I switched to cloud engineering. So that's a good example of turbulence, where, I was able to make a maneuver and go into the next stage of my life as far as my career. And finally, there is the touchdown. Here things have been resolved or settled into like the new normal. So if we're following the track, my takeoff is, stuff kind of during the recession went really bad. Had to find an alternate to what I was doing at the time in entertainment. Said I was interested in tech. worked inside the startup community and did a bunch of things to kind of get some experience and self-teach by self-code, which would be the Turbulence part. And then now, touching down after being hired by Deloitte, which is kind of the cloud part of my journey because I was in tech before that. But really showing how, those three stages of how I was able to maneuver and change from one scene to the other. So when you're telling your story, even when you're in front of an employer or definitely when you're in front of investors, this kind of formula makes it really succinct, and it makes it so you're kind of not all over the place when you're trying to convey the story you're trying to tell to your target audience. So for this exercise, we'll just take a few moments and we'll talk about kind of what you can do as homework as far as like creating your own story based on, and you'll have these materials to work offline, but just wanted to kind of talk about some of the things we've discussed just recently. So let's have you practice creating stories that include kind of your takeoff, turbulence, and touchdown. And with this handout that we'll send out, you'll be able to kind of really map it out. And this can be really, serious and compelling, or it can be really silly if that aligns with your personality, but it's really just good to map out kind of what you're going to be like, what your story is. And I will also, once again, say I would love for you guys to share your story once you kind of have the first draft. I personally would love to look over it and give any feedback and just really hear more about you guys. As Bod's been a really tight-knit group when it just overall. So would love to hear more about you guys on a personal level. But I did want to come back to like your defining moment. Now that we have kind of some context on practicing using the story framework, turning your defining moments into compelling stories, we can talk about how you basically encapsulate that defining moment. And with that, it's really just having all of the detail and explaining what kind of levers from that triggered, that defining moment, like what made you act, what made you change, what made you different from that defining moment. When you're able to convey that, I think that translates a lot of times to technical situations as well, because you need to be able to convey why you made the decision. And I think people really grasp towards people that have a strong sensibility of why they made a decision. And for as far as the session, because of usually this being more centered around breakout rooms, obviously you guys will have homework once we send this over, but I want you all to feel kind of, or I want you guys to feel proud about really your authentic story. And I hope you all feel kind of more comfortable kind of from this mini session on how you can better tell your story and be prepared to share your story outside of this session. This was, of course, a very high-level overview on how to craft your authentic story. However, you now have, or you will have the tools, especially with the follow-up materials, to dig deeper and refine further so that you can share your story more often. And I think the more you share your story, the easier it is to network, because a really compelling story, it becomes viral because someone tells someone else about it. A lot of the great people I work with at Bot, as far as Rose and Tiffany and Kelda and all of these, great professionals, a lot of times I end up bragging about them, just by chance, because they're just so amazing. And I think it's because they have great stories and they know how to tell their stories. So hopefully this was helpful. And I think with that, Kelda, we can go into kind of a brief Q&A. And if there's no questions, then we can definitely go into the prize sector of things. So I think I haven't seen any questions in the chat, so I will definitely add the trivia here. And just so to state the rules again, we're giving away three $50 gift cards, and whoever answers first. Oh, there was great question from Rose. Yeah, so one of the big things I did to get into tech was two things. One, it's a mix of kind of self-taught education and then real-world experience. And if you're part of any of my social media circles, it's something I preach all the time. As I think the education system is changing a lot, where the kind of the traditional track of computer science is still a valid one and a great one, but I think a lot of organizations and the widespread of technology is making it so they're accepting different backgrounds now. So I self-taught for the most part. I linked up with some mentors by going to meetups similar to this, where found some senior engineers that were willing to invest some time in me, and and I told them, flat out, I'll work hard and I won't be kind of a pest if you just give me some guidance. So that was one. I found a mentor. I set up my own curriculum based on the feedback from my mentor. So at the time, I wanted to get into the front end. So they, sent me a bunch of stuff on JavaScript, HTML, CSS, really kind of devoured all of that material. And then from there, I started making connections in the community to do really some free work to show that I could do the work. So really my launch point was when I did a free website for the Orlando Addy Awards, which is a prestigious awards, and I think it's a national thing, but we have an Orlando chapter. And just to put in perspective of who was up for awards, it was a lot of the Disney companies, Purple Rock Scissors, a bunch of other kind of great firms and businesses. And I ended up building their website with another friend, and from that I was able to garner a job. So um, yeah, and as far as self-training, I think one of the best resources I always recommend is YouTube for sure. But I think I have a few others where Udemy is a great source. Usually has really cheap but great courses, very lengthy, in-depth courses from industry professionals. If you're trying to get into cloud engineering, Cloud Guru is one that I use to this day, as well as Linux Academy, but I know they merged recently. Trying to think of other. Free Code Camp is another big one, 100% free. If you make it through the whole experience as well, they'll help you with job placement. So those are just a few, things that. And then I think the next question is, how did you identify what tech skills you wanted to get into? That's a good question. So I think with tech, it's similar to like most interests you have. I think what I did is I cast a wide net. I was looking, talking to mentors and just kind of picking people's brain in the tech community. I had gotten a lot of information about front end development, back end development, people that were just doing straight API development, things of that nature. And I basically kept working until I found the thing that spoke to me. And at the time, I had a decent amount of experience in like graphic design and things of that nature. So front end was like something I could naturally get into because I could, visually see it. And I think knowing I wrote the code and then being able to see it was really helpful. And then when I got in the cloud, the same thing. I wanted to get into data science, kind of got smitten by the cloud engineering bug, and kind of been here ever since. And it's the thing, I still love to this day. Then another great question. Do you think that this is harder for Black and brown tech professionals to tell their stories? Yeah, I think it is. I think because based on systemic issues, definitely, and based on even what we hear from our own upbringing, a lot of times, especially if you're like me and come from like, a lower socioeconomic background, then a lot of times you feel like you don't want to tell your story because it's like too black. And I'm here to tell you that's not true. I think we need to be, only way things are going to really change is if we're allowed to be 100% us. Of course, there's a time and place, but what I've seen is the more I've opened up about my culture being a proud Black man, then you become a catalyst where people have, they feel they can do the same. And then another great follow-up question is any tips for the specific group to combat the issues they face and still tell their story authentically? Yeah, I would say be bold. I've always had a paradigm, and thankfully, Deloitte has always given me the space to be who I am and hired me based on that. But um, I've left a lot of opportunities on the table because of knowing that I wasn't going to be who I needed to be there, or be me rather. I would say definitely get involved in your diversity, equity, inclusion. I think that makes it so you have a voice, and you have a voice for others that may not be comfortable doing that type of work internally. If you're a Black founder, as far as like you're the person steering the ship, just make sure that, and obviously you have your kind of like your brand, far as like what you want to be for your company. But if you're a Black founder and you're into what you're into, make sure that that's woven into your company culture. Don't feel like you have to be who you think the investor wants you to be, because I think that's where you get kind of some partnerships where you guys surprise each other later, and maybe it's not a good fit. If you're authentically you, then they know you. They can trust you, and you can trust them. So definitely, I would say be purposeful with being your authentic self is really kind of my underline there for that question. I guess those were really great questions. So hopefully folks got a lot from that. Yeah, I agree. I think our younger generation, I think the good thing about the young generation now is you guys are, I think you're, and I'm not like 70 or anything, but I recognize that I'm like probably like now as a senior dev, like more of an OG dev now. So I think the workplace has changed a lot, where they are looking for that authentic self right off the bat, and that kind of the what fits the mold has been debunked more and more. And there's a lot of stats that show as well, diverse as far as diversity and inclusion, we're leaving literally billions of dollars out of the economy by not diversifying our workforce. So if you want, diversity breeds a great culture, but it's also lucrative. And if you don't let people be their authentic self, then you're only going to get a fraction of the potential they're going to give you on your team. So I think authentic self at the end of the day is a big bottom line contributor. Thanks, Rose. I'm glad we're OGs, and I won't be old anymore. I'm just seasoned. I think unless we have any other questions, we can do our trivia now. Not sure how many are out there still, but we have a few fun questions that I'll post in the chat. And just so I know everyone's typing speed varies, and I probably should even be a faster typer, but so all you have to do is put in the letter of the selection, and whoever gets it first will make sure we get your information from Kelda. We'll put her name or her email in the chat if you can do that, Kelda, and we'll make sure that the gift card gets to you. So with that, we'll do our first question. For some reason, I do not see the chat. I'm going to just post it. Maybe Kelda, you'll be able to drop this in the chat. And Kelda's dropping that in chat now. So get your fingers ready. $50 on the line, no pressure. And we'll give you guys, we'll see. Then we'll drop the last question there. Hopefully you guys aren't asleep at the wheel. I'm not sure if there's responses I'm not seeing, but I guess we could give it a few more minutes for all three. If we somehow don't get enough responses, we can still do a giveaway. Maybe we could do it by email, and whoever responds back fast enough, we can do the gift card too. If no, we get no bites here. Checking. All right. So I think we will look to connect with you folks offline to see how we can do this giveaway. I think we lost some folks, maybe even some difficulties. So we can definitely broadcast out, as you know, we're going to be giving this out no matter what. Definitely share the live and tag friends who may be interested in the content in the future. We're going to look to do a lot more of these. So thank you guys for joining this session, and we hopefully look forward in the near future, or in the future at least, once it's safe to gather back again in person. So more to come. Definitely sign up for our newsletter on the site at blackorlandotech.org, which is on the front page. With that, have a great night.